Hey, welcome to the first episode of The Search Bar here. Has your marketing mix gone bitter or sour? Sit back, relax, and sip on some top shelf strategies from The Search Bar, where we're serving up insights for your digital marketing to taste and work successfully. For today's episode, we are joined by Brantley Smith, the CEO and founder of Tampa Home Services Group, to discuss how he's revolutionizing the home services industry through digital marketing. So welcome, Brantly. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
This is awesome. Really excited to have you on as a first guest here. I know we kind of chatted a little bit before, and I think we're going to have a really cool episode and some really good stuff to talk about. So just to kick it off, we're going to talk about your roots there. And just curious if you could kind of tell me about your career path and how you ended up where you are today.
Gosh, I hope my roots aren't showing through.
Or what were the life decisions that led to you sitting in that chair?
The background is I started as a technologist in the late 90s, got my MCSE, which is a Microsoft certification, and thought I wanted to be a technical nerd the rest of my life.
Nice.
I quickly realized that I wanted to use technology for the benefit of generating revenue. So how can we apply technological concepts to business rather than being on the expense side of the equation? So anybody who's a CFO out there or has worked for one, you'll know IT is generally a thankless job and it's on the expense side. So
right.
How can we actually move business forward by leveraging technology was what drove me originally. That was also coupled with a desire to be an entrepreneur, mostly because I was young and thought I was smarter than everybody, which I wasn't. So the more I
We've
learned,
all been there.
Totally. I think the more you learn, the more you realize how little you know. So enlightenment's funny that way. But so I got into, I started a technology company called Computer Needs back in the early 2000s. After having spent a little bit of time in corporate America doing things like systems integration and network engineering. And during that time, I had to learn how to market my business. So opened up a Google AdWords account at the time, learned that you can spend $2,000 in a day pretty quickly.
Yeah, Google will take your money.
That was not my budget, by the way. It wasn't even a month. So, you just kind of go trial by fire and building out, domain name, in a website that had been optimized for the time, keyword stuffing, and all the things that we did back then to try to get some rankings.
Right.
And then ultimately make the phone ring. So it worked pretty well. We did about 4 or 5 years as an IT company, and I spun off a franchise called Bidway. So we became a franchisor, which was fun. So then I had 2 companies. And that got hard. About 18 months into being a franchise, we were bought out by a publicly traded company. We were in eBay consignment. Do you remember 40-Year-Old Virgin?
Heck yeah.
That was us. So we were first to market here in Tampa with another guy that started up around the same time. We almost partnered, but we didn't.
Nice. So what was the weirdest thing that came through the shop there to be sold on eBay?
Not the boots. Not the boots, but we had, we had some of the ugliest ties you've ever seen in your life. So we called it regifting. And we actually made a promotion around it and did a TV commercial around regifting. So if you got a gift from your birthday or Christmas that you really didn't like, bring it in, we'll put it on eBay and sell it for you.
Nice.
Because back then it was complicated to sell on eBay. So.
Yeah. That's fantastic.
It was fun. So I went through that whole process, and it, and I dabbled in some commercial real estate, and the IT business, digital marketing, and real estate. Those are the areas of my expertise. And eventually ended up going to work for Cox Media Group and Valpak as a digital marketing product developer in the mid 2000s, and that's kind of when I found my home with digital product development in particular. So how do you generate products that can derive revenue, that are often B2C type products that are lead generation in nature, and that got my appetite wet for it. So I started understanding the financial modeling, freemium, and all the different concepts, with selling online, and then moved from there into agency work. So around 2011, I was hired for a large national home services agency here in Tampa. We dealt with HVAC, plumbing, and electrical as one category. We dealt with outdoor power equipment, which is like Cub Cadet and Husqvarna and some of these other big names out there. And then we had a tourism arm as well. So spent a lot of time in the Caribbean, which is very different than the HVAC, and it's very dry and then very interesting. So,
so what made you want to go into the agency world, being such an entrepreneur, right, and starting up all these businesses, and then now you're switching and working at an agency?
Yep. I'm going to have a sip of my vodka first here.
Yeah, of course.
Clear my throat. That's delicious.
Okay. Can't wait for this answer now.
So switching from being in an agency and coming out of that into what I'm doing now, is that what you're asking, or we're not quite there yet?
More going into an agency, right? Because you did all these items leading up to there, right? You started your own businesses, you helped people sell things on eBay and everything, and kind of being your own boss, right, to an extent. And now you're going into the agency world, and just kind of curious about that shift there.
I had a desire for head trauma. No, I actually had children. So there you have it. That's a very common answer to that question, I think, for a lot of people. So after having sold both companies, we sold both the IT company and the franchise. It was I took a little reprieve and then kind of got back into corporate, primarily for insurance stability while we're raising our children. So I just made a mental and emotional pivot at that point and parked my entrepreneurial desires because I knew that would suck me in again and I would be working 80 hours a week and not paying attention to my children. That was the commitment.
So you wanted to be a good dad is what you're saying.
In short.
Got it.
Love
that.
That's it. So it was really fun. The agency world was new to me. So, having to represent brands at the distributor or OEM level, represent tourism boards, all the way down to the SMB was very exciting because, working for an agency, it's different every day, practically. So you're always working on something new. But I spent the early days effectively creating their digital marketing side of their business. They were a media buying agency historically. So we started out with 4 employees on the digital marketing team. I think we had maybe 25 employees in the company. Almost 12 years later, last November, we had over 120 employees and grew to over $50 million, more than almost 2/3 of that being digital marketing revenue from products that we built.
Congratulations. So it seems like that entrepreneurial spirit came through again this time inside the agency.
Very much so. And actually the owner of the company is extremely entrepreneurial, and he gave me the latitude to be entrepreneurial on his dime, which was very nice. So we got to do a little trial and error. But fortunately, the first major product we built out, which is called Lead Builder, actually is their core digital marketing product today.
I like the name Lead Builder.
It's very direct and right to the point.
Love it.
So, and that's a home services. So that's HVAC, plumbing, electrical primarily, but it can span a variety of different categories.
All right. So again, everything's kind of coming together there at the agency side, right? Your passion for technology, entrepreneurship. And you said that was last year, right? So you shifted into something else starting this year. So I know we kind of talked a little bit about that. If you want to talk about kind of that seismic shift, let's say, and kind of where you are now. You're the CEO, co-founder of Tampa Home Services Group, right?
That's it. I mean, to kind of back into that answer, the last few years at the agency, I had shifted over to developing some SaaS platforms. One was a event-triggered platform, very, very cool, created an MVP. It did very, very well, in terms of creating excitement for potential customers of it. And then as I started kind of wrapping up my corporate career, I felt the need to get back into being an entrepreneur because my daughter turned 18 and I just moved her into college this weekend. So I knew this was coming and said, okay, wife, it's time. Let's go back after it. We have the resources now. I'm a lot smarter. I'm definitely uglier and older. So somebody's bound to listen to me at this point. And we decided to get into franchising. So I looked at buying a business that had a pre-existing revenue in home services primarily. So I was looking at HVAC and a variety of different things that I was more familiar with than roofing, which is what I ended up with. But came across a company called Horsepower Brands, which is a very fast-growing, very progressive type of franchisor, and they're multi-brand. So they have one brand called Mighty Dog Roofing, which we bought the West Tampa market in late 2022, and basically got operational in April of this year. So
Nice.
we're brand new, but the intellectual decision to go into roofing specifically as a category of home services was really around my experience not only as a product developer and lead generation and digital marketing expert in the business. Okay, I can have a huge advantage, by generating leads for my business. Yeah. But we also wanted to set up a digital agency that could do that for other companies and maybe do a little bit of a pivot from what I had been used to in terms of our product selections and how we're going to enter the market. So roofing, though, is of all of the home service categories the least trusted. 9 years in a row. I think it might be 11 now, but it's either 9 or 11 by the SBA as the number one least trusted category in home services.
I'm not surprised.
So again, head trauma.
Right.
I run toward it. It's crazy, but as a homeowner, there's a lot of dynamics working here. So I've got this agency experience. I saw how contractors were. Second, third generation family businesses that are doing very well. We help them grow their businesses. I'd love to do that for myself, do something a little bit different. And then here we are. I think that roofing as a homeowner, though, I've put several roofs on homes here in Tampa, and I've generally been left underwhelmed with the customer experience. And customer experience is really the missing piece in a lot of home service categories, so roofing in particular. And there's a variety of reasons and opinions on that. We just wanted to come out and say, okay, we're going to create a company that is customer-centric, that changes the way, or at least attempts to revolutionize the way people think about home services, in particular roofing. And that's very difficult to do. It's educational. It's through experience. It's through delivering quality services over and over and over in a particular market, and trying to affect that change, or at least create that perception for our brand here in this market, so we can use it as a differentiator. So we're very excited. We have a good team. We have 4 trucks on the road already. Oh, wow. Production manager, GM, sales director, sales reps, the whole 9.
Very cool. So you spoke about kind of the gap you saw there, which is the trust, right?
Yep.
In roofers or roofing in general. And for me as an SEO by trade, I also think about the lack of education for the general public, right? So there's a lot of questions that come up that you can answer and kind of help people with, through content creation, et cetera. So like you said, you might not have that much experience with roofing, but I think it's such a big area of opportunity for marketers such as us to come in there and help educate people, answer people's questions, what they're searching for, and then also turn them into customers by actually delivering a good experience, which is something that had been lacking there. So just find that super fascinating there, and can't wait to kind of see how that continues to grow.
For sure. And it's I contrast it to compare and contrast it to what I've been spending my time in home services, which is HVAC primarily. And HVAC has come a long way in the last 10 years, in particular, the level of sophistication in terms of marketing and so forth, and their level of sophistication in systems. So you look at Service Titan and some of these field service management platforms. Field Edge is a great one as well, and they're probably the 2 biggest ones out there. But they kind of changed the game a little bit for how to operate and how to look at your marketing, and educated over the course of years. The HVAC side, but there really isn't an equivalent to that on the roofing side. There are some field service management platforms, but they're not as forward as that and sophisticated. So there's a real lack of marketing understanding, kind of to the point with the roofing industry as a whole. It is made up of largely, small operations, 1-2 person operations that know roofing, and they're excellent roofers. They really are. They're very good roofers out there, but when it comes to educating the customer, when it comes to customer experience, they really fall short. Things like creating organic content, doing some of the better roofing companies out there that maybe have a budget or have an agency have kind of started figuring that out. But there's a huge opportunity to visually, in particular, and through messaging, show people, which is what people want. They want to see it. They want that experiential side now. what it is supposed to be like. So what is the life of a homeowner, dealing with a re-roof? Yeah. So what does that look like? Is it miserable, or can it be actually a fun experience? Can I get involved in visualizers and tools that let me see my home with different color and style architectural shingles and that kind of stuff? And it takes technology and it takes marketing to do that.
That's a great point, because a roof is probably one of the biggest investments you're ever going to make as a homeowner. Sure. And if the car industry can let you change the colors and configure your car before you buy it, why wouldn't the roofing industry be able to do that as well?
Exactly. And the tech is starting to get out there, and some of the manufacturers and so forth are figuring that out. Some of the roofers are figuring that out. So it's starting to penetrate the market a little bit, but for the most part, it's very old school.
Yeah. So just coming back, all the things you're mentioning, like the vision and the entrepreneurship. Just talking about your time to grow there. How did you know that was the right path for you, is to, the entrepreneurship path, to be an entrepreneur?
My general desire to impact a business more than can generally be done when you're working for somebody else. It's if you're lucky enough to work for an organization that maybe is entrepreneurial, or they're running maybe EOS or entrepreneurial operating system, and they're very open to input, and there's a culture that accepts that, I think you can get close. Mm-hmm. But there's something about being able to not always be right, but know that you're going to draw the best out of good people, mm-hmm. and use that to inform your decisions, and then seeing the outcome of that, being able to that gratification of knowing that you've built something is irreplaceable in a corporate setting. It just is.
Right. That makes sense. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. Let's move on to barrels of wisdom here. So we want to talk a little bit more about digital marketing. Digital marketing evolves every single day. What are some things you're seeing in front of your eyes there that you think might be 2 to 3 years from now that are going to make a big impact?
Gosh, where to begin? I mean, that can be a rabbit hole. There's a few things that come to my mind. I guess we'll circle back to AI. Because that's the big one.
That's its own podcast. Yeah.
And it's very, it's recently, gained a lot of attention. And so there's going to be an acceleration and a jump point at some point here. But, there are some simple things that I think are around us that we don't think about unless you're really looking for it. One of them is just really how to scale your business using technology, and some of it's marketing and some of it's not. But RPA, which is robotics process automation, is kind of digitizing people, and that can be used very much in marketing. It can be used in every aspect of your business, and it's a very deep, big concept. But effectively, it mimics what people do, and it can do it even outside of repetitive type of predictable work items, day-to-day stuff. So I think kind of at least initially taking a look at, Automation Anywhere and similar type of software platforms, and understanding what RPA can do for a business from a marketing and scalability standpoint is something people need to look at moving forward, because the companies that are going to be leveraging that type of thing will have an edge on you, especially with the employment environment right now. The cost of labor. So what you want to do is be able to bring in good people and elevate what they're working on. You want to reduce the absorption of all their time in things that can be automated. So it's not a bad word. It's about helping people understand how to use it as a tool and leverage it. Same thing with AI. AI in marketing is going to be huge. And then next generation ABM. So for the B2B marketers that are out there, I strongly recommend looking at ZoomInfo and 6 Sense, and then start building your tech stack around that and understanding what is the way that we actually go about efficiently and cost effectively reaching the people who are in market for the type of services that you actually sell. That again is a whole nother podcast, but I would say next generation ABM is a good way to go. There's a book by 6 Sense that was written by their CMO. That is, I believe, if I remember correctly, I read it about a year ago. It's no spam, no forums, no cold calls. Highly recommend B2B marketers read that.
Yeah. So ABM stands for what again?
Oh, sorry. I'm an acronym like...
You're good. Machine. I just want to make sure all our listeners are aware of what we're talking about.
Account-based marketing. So it's really about looking at aligning your marketing, your sales organization, and your customer experience organization around accounts versus just shotgun approach, or maybe demographic or persona-based marketing. So it's about looking at signals using AI platforms that are vertically specific signals for people that are in market that have job roles that you're targeting within the ICPs or ideal customer profile of the actual corporation itself. So it's really pretty cool. You can have tech stack like 6 Sense and Gong and HubSpot, or 6 Sense, Gong, and Salesforce, or so you combine CRM, intent-based AI software, recorded business development and sales call analytics, marketing automation. There's like 5 or 6 key components of this technology that you have to get working together, and it's not for the meek, it's not for the faint at heart. But if you really want to grow your revenue, and it's all around revenue innovation, there are some great podcasts around that too. So if you kind of look at revenue innovation, you'll find some of the voices out there. But highly recommend it. So if you are a company that primarily is looking to grow B2B, that is a game changer. And I think in the next few years, you're going to see more and more companies find it accessible because they're educating themselves on what it is and how to do it. Plan on a 9 to 12 month rollout.
Yeah.
So it's can be expensive.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about, tech stack, right? Which is an interesting term in itself, and kind of interesting approach is kind of looking at what technologies, what platforms, what software do I need in order to reach my end goal, right?
That's right.
And so, 12 months almost seems sometimes optimistic because, you have to research it, you have to look at, what tools you want to use there, and then figure out and roll them out. Oh, what's that?
What's happening?
There's some kind of alarm going off. Goodness. Oh, I think that means it's time for the perfect pour. Are you ready, Brantly?
Sure, man. I'm always ready for a perfect pour.
Let me turn off.
Got to be kidding.
Right, you already got your
vodka trick question,
there, right?
Yeah.
So I know we sent you some Mad Libs or fill in the blanks ahead of time there to help you create your own custom wine label, as we like to call it here. So let's see what you came up with. So if you want to go ahead and just walk us through what you came up with here.
So I can just read it off as it. So if I were to create a bottle of my own marketing blend, it would be called Alignment. That would be my fancy marketing blend bottle of wine.
I like that.
Yep.
I think I can already see that on a label.
Yeah. I think it's probably a cool name just for wine anyway.
Yeah.
Alignment. You probably have to hold one eye, just make sure you're aligned on the road when you drive home.
Right. I love it.
But yeah, basically it's there's more than 2 ingredients, but I put kind of the economics of business and mix that with consumer behavior, and there's really 2 sides to look at any. Whether you're an agency or you're working for your own brand as a brand marketer or an executive, I can't tell you how many times I've been asked and put in a situation where, hey, come up with a marketing strategy or a digital, campaign strategy for this brand. They're coming in tomorrow. Let's put a 40, slide deck presentation together and a price and everything.
Death by PowerPoint. When you don't even really understand the business. And you'd be shocked at how often that happens. A lot of times it's just because of lack of time or a lack of resources, so you just kind of rush to a number, or you homogenize the strategy. Really, you need to know a couple of things. One, follow the consumer. So always inform your strategy based on, or if it's B2B, that's the consumer, but always inform your strategy on not tactics, not, hey, we do SEO, we do paid search, we do paid social, we do organic social, we have writers, we have this, we have that. Everybody has that. Understand how the consumer is going to actually make the decision on not only who they're going to do business with, but what they actually need, what their needs are. Right.
And then reverse engineer your messaging and your creative. And, of course, you usually have to align with some sort of brand standards depending on what level you're working with. But that was that piece of it, which we can dive into more if you'd like. The other piece, which is, understanding the economics of the business, is really more of a needs analysis. But the economics, I like to draw that out because it really, as a marketer, I think you need to understand in most cases, if not every case, the economics of their business. So what kind of revenue do they have now? What do they want? Is it feasible? Do they have the ability to scale at that rate? Is it feasible as a marketer to generate that much of a difference based on strictly marketing and advertising? And then what is the cost of acquisition, of a customer? And does that make sense? Can you produce as a marketer what is going to be required within the cost range of what so if you have a $10,000 ticket or a $5,000 average, ticket, and the important question, let me ask you as a business owner, what do you pay? What is your cost of acquisition? And you'll often, a lot of them won't know, but they'll at least talk through and say, well, we spend this much in marketing. You start doing some of the back of napkin math. What is the most you would pay? If you have an average of $5,000 ticket, would you pay $3,000 to acquire that customer? Well, no. My cost of goods and labor and all this kind of stuff is beyond that. So, okay, would it be $1,000? No, it's still too high. How about $500? Maybe. How about $300? I definitely can do that. Okay. I mean, you start understanding what that is, and then as you start doing your research and you follow the path of the consumer behavior and you back into all of the signals that are out there, whether it be looking at search volume, looking at trends, or monitoring what the latest queries are and how much volume there is out there by geography, and all the different things that you're going to do to determine whether or not you can, where you're going to reach those people, and what it's going to ultimately take to reach those people, and then what it's going to cost to reach those people, and make sure that jives. That's really that.
Those are sound like the two perfect ingredients there.
It's delicious.
And I think we'll come back to those ingredients. It's called alignment again, right? That's the name of this blend. But just to make sure we get to everything here, the final one here is this blend is best for any business who wants to allow.
This blend is best for any business who wants to allow consumer behaviors to inform their marketing strategy and meet the business's financial objectives, not objections.
Could be objections, right?
It could be. Yeah.
So you already had touched on most of these, I think,
absolutely.
With your ingredients.
It basically describes what I said. So if you understand the economics of the business, you understand how the economics of the transactional side of their business works. You understand what their limitations on their cost of sale is. It tells you as a marketer what you have to play with.
Right.
It can also help inform your recommended budget and your and then of course your strategy. If you don't have those two pieces, really what you end up being is your typical everyday marketer or agency out there that is selling tactics. And the more you can separate yourself from just selling those tactics and competing against everybody else, the less likely you're going to be competing on price. You're going to be adding a lot more value. Yep. You'll make more money. It's good for everybody, and you'll keep customers longer.
Makes sense. Yeah, so we kind of talked about the two ingredients, right? And I just want to focus in a little bit maybe on the consumer behavior, right? Sure. So that's something that curious what your approach, what your recommendations are to figure that out better of a business to understand their consumers and kind of understand the consumer behavior and how they can then take advantage of that.
There's a lot of ways to do that. If you're funded, and you have research dollars, you can purchase industry information that's not necessarily consumer behavioral information. We'll get there. I recommend IBIS.
Okay.
IBIS reports are $1,200 to maybe $2,400 a pop, but it will give you the latest and greatest information on the entire industry. There are some advertising market share. It'll tell you whether it's fragmented or not. It'll just give you a really good perspective on that vertical. And IBIS does practically everything that's out there because they're SIC or NAIC code based, type of research. When you get onto the marketing side, Forrester and there's a variety of other different research outfits that give away some of their information and they make you pay for others. But anything you can do, in particular, if you're going deep dive,
freemium model, right?
Back to the free, exactly. They get you with the little charts and a little bit of blurb, and then you have to pay. But anything you can do to educate yourself on, if it's vertically specific, if you're more of a generalist, it's going to be a little more challenging. Then you have to just kind of do it on your own. And every ad channel then has its own method of determining what it's going to take to either get reach or share of voice or share of impression. So paid search. I'm old school. Use the keyword planner tool.
Nice. Yep.
You can really discover a lot of great keyword alternatives that you didn't think about. Long tail stuff that can also inform your content marketing and your SEO.
Yep.
As well as giving you geographically what the search volume is, so you kind of know how to prioritize not only your paid search but of course your organic side as well. When you're looking at Facebook and Instagram, you're looking at reach versus budget, depending on what kind of ad ad you decide to go with, whether it be lead ads or conversion ads. God help you if you're doing conversion ads these days.
Why that?
Well, it's very technical to do it correctly now. Since the Cambridge Analytica stuff years ago, and they continued stripping out all the personally identifiable information and any kind of other data to allow you to target homeowners, for example. You have to get really creative with interests and putting in negative interests and things like that. So creating an audience is a little more challenging in Facebook and Instagram now. So the general rule of thumb right now is just kind of broaden that a little bit. Stick with geography or some of the basic things like that, and let their AI and machine learning kind of guide the learning process. But that's if you install a pixel on your landing page or website, and you do the conversion tracking, which is a server-side implementation, which is a little more technical. So you definitely want maybe Upwork that one, or freelance.com that one, or find an agency that can do it for you, because it's not easy to do.
Yeah, I heard you say something interesting there, is let the AI do its work, right, or do its job, and that's something I've heard a lot with different ad platforms, specifically Meta with Facebook and Instagram, is just trusting the AI and letting it learn, right, and kind of going through that learning process there. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Because I know, both of us are a little bit more old school, starting in Google AdWords, kind of the manual bidding and kind of, controlling all the knobs and switches. And now it's like you're handing off a lot of that controls to the machines, to the AI there.
That's right. And a lot of folks don't like it. Paid search in particular, they're fighting smart bidding and so forth, and doing a lot of A/B testing and trying to prove Google wrong. But when it comes to Facebook, we've learned that less is more now. The more you restrict those audiences, unless you have it's really proven, you've got a good formula, then kind of open it up first. With conversion ads in particular, you want to get to that first 50 conversions so it can fully optimize and come out of the learning phase, which is really important. And depending on what type of volume you normally do, that can take days or it can take weeks or longer. So you have to be patient with it as well. But yeah, their AI and the way they handle dynamic creative and is pretty good at this point. And then so the one takeaway I would say with Facebook is, besides the pixel and and conversion tracking implementation, is lean on creative. You really, in this day and age, as much as I'm a technical marketer, I consider myself more of a technical marketer than like a brand marketer. None of it matters if you don't have really compelling messaging and creative. It just goes back to the absolute basics, which is, people want to experience. So find yourself a good production house. We're in one right now. So find a way to work with people who understand how to create compelling creative, and will understand what your consumer is, who they are, what appeals to them. And it will go a long way, because what will end up happening is they'll engage with that Facebook or Instagram ad or that TikTok video or the reel or whatever you're putting out there. And those signals will then work with the AI and the machine learning to then try to find people like that to then serve that ad to. So it's a much better way over the long haul to let your campaigns marinate. A little trick for a tip for those out there that do Facebook advertising. When you set up your ad set, create 2 to 3 copies of the exact same campaign within your ad set. And part of the reason to do that is because of the way their algorithm works. You'll actually find that one of them will outshine the others, even though they're the exact same ad.
Oh, wow.
Yep. It's kind of interesting how that works. But we pretty much do 3 now for every single ad. Just copy it. It's a quick process, and then you'll find. And sometimes we'll do it over the course of time, so we won't do it necessarily all at the same time, but we'll do it and maybe skip a day or two, and then copy it, and skip a day or two and copy it, and then we'll eventually pause the ads within that ad set of the duplicates that are not performing as well. Can't explain why that is the case, but after lots of testing, and I've talked to other collaborated and kind of seeking out, is somebody else seeing the same thing? And we found quite a few of the real pros out there that'll tell you the same thing.
Wow, that's a real great, let's call it a hack there, maybe. That's a hack right now, right, on Facebook ads there. So thank you for sharing that, and that's fantastic.
Absolutely, do not do that with Google ads.
Right. That's funny.
Yeah.
But what I like what you really touched on there, Brantly, was, almost that it's always been there in advertising, right? It's the media and the message, the media and the creative, right? And how important that creative is, and getting more and more important because the media is getting more and more automated, right? So that's something that we can automate. We can have different hacks like you just mentioned there. But good creative is always going to be important. Good creative is always going to be good creative there. How do you feel about testing creative? Is that part of it as well? Kind of A/B testing different types of creative, or what does that look like?
Yeah, without question. There's some that will help you. Some, Facebook included, will help you with some dynamic modifications to some messaging and things like that. And then there's some AI-driven stuff that's pretty interesting as well. To kind of circle back a little bit in the AI, AI is going to be changing the world here, man.
Yep.
And advertising is very much dead center on that. So, copywriting and things like that have already been well impacted, for years with Jasper and some other, copy data AI and others. But that one's predictable. But as far as like creative, so there's a company called Waymark that is partnered with Hulu. So if you're trying to do like an OTT or over, some sort of streaming or addressable type of media buy yourself on their do-it-yourself platform, and you don't have your own creative to upload, they recommend working with them. So, you can put in your company name and your address, and it'll go and it'll scan your site. It'll find your Google business profile. It'll find different assets, and it actually will tell a very good story. Which is remarkable. I mean, I'm very much a critic of that, automated, creative video type stuff, but they're on to something, and I think it's a nascent peak at what we're going to see in the coming few years. I don't think it will in any time soon. It's hard to wrap my mind around it replacing custom production, but for the SMB, the low budget options out there, it's a really good way to create some video, which is desperately needed in different formats, whether you're doing widescreen or you're doing iPad or mobile, and it'll spit it out in all those formats for you, and it's very reasonably priced and pretty good stuff.
That's fantastic. Yeah. Smart people over there at Hulu, right? Kind of removing that barrier to entry of needing the creative in order to run some ads on there.
Absolutely. And there's a bunch of them out there. Simplify, it used to be, you could sign up online. I think you have to talk to them first now, but they're a really good lower barrier of entry type of programmatic platform. But as far as OTT or widescreen type of addressable, your Ad Critter's another good one that's very low cost. Anybody can use it, and they actually have stock videos that you can use to actually run spots and tag them. And so, I mean, you drop in some AI on that, and it's going to be pretty hard to mess it up. And even targeting your geographies, targeting your with programmatic, it's a lot easier because they have the DMP side or the data side that would help you target homeowners explicitly or specific household incomes or and the B2B things as well. So those are great ways to also expand your marketing outside of just Facebook and Google, who gets most of the money. Highly recommend augmenting it with programmatic. For sure.
I love how much into the weeds we got here and all the great tips. I hope everybody listening is enjoying as much as I am. But we are kind of getting towards the end here, so I just want to as a final question here, is there anything or any final takeaway you want our listeners to know about the future of digital marketing? You mentioned so much there.
I think you can kind of wrap all that stuff into this concept. I mean, we're talking about RPA, robotics process automation, sounds super hard. AI and marketing and next gen ABM, whatever.
Yeah.
The real rule of thumb here is don't be afraid of it. Walk toward it, not away. Use it as a tool. Make it yours. Make it your bee. I mean, seriously, don't be afraid of it. It's not going to take you out unless you let it take you out. You got to stay ahead of it. At the end, there's always going to be a human that can make anything better. And humans developed this technology, but humans can make it better. So think of ways as a marketer, whether you're a brand marketer inside or you're in an agency or what have you, or running your own company and doing your marketing. How can I leverage and seek out and learn as much about these tools as possible and leverage them for my business and my clients? And I think if you find those value propositions, that's then what is in your death by a PowerPoint presentation that you're inevitably going to give and say, look, we have the power of AI, we have the power of automation. We have the power of this and power of that. But it's something that we have figured out how to harness, and you can kind of make that a little proprietary, create a little bit of a moat around your business by coming up with maybe clever packaging or productization names and things like that, where they're typical deliveries of services, but they're fueled by these things. And I think that's very powerful and very compelling. So that would be what I would leave anybody listening with.
Nice. I love that. And just on that note, I recently saw a video from the Today Show from when the internet first started, right? I don't know if you've seen this or any of our listeners, but it's like
Al Gore?
It's not, yeah, of course, Al Gore invented the internet, right? We all know that. But this was when the internet first started, late 1990s, early 2000s, like 20, 25 years ago.
Yep.
And they're sitting there and they don't know what the @ symbol is. It's an A with a circle around it. How does email work? I don't want internet. No one needs internet, right? And we look at it and we kind of laugh at it now of how naive we were, right? And that's where I think AI is right now, is we're going to look back in 25 years and our kids, our grandkids are going to make fun of us of like, man, these guys didn't even know whatever terminology we're using now, or they use it on their phones instead of on their headphones or wherever AI is going to move to. And so to your point, I think we need to embrace it and walk towards it, not be afraid of it, or else you're going to be left behind.
Couldn't agree more. And by the way, I'm dating myself, but I worked at Circuit City in 1990 selling computer systems. And I remember when the internet, was being rolled out to civilians.
Yep.
We all know it started with the military. And it was really fascinating to watch. But yeah, there were a lot of people that did run from it. And I leaned in and, here we are talking to each other now about it.
Yeah, couldn't be happier. Brantly, thank you so much for joining.
Absolutely. It was wonderful, Eric. I appreciate it. And glad I got to be your first. This is great.
This is great.
Really cool. Hope I can come back at some other point and add some value to you.
I feel like we have so much more to talk about, so we'll definitely have you back in the future.
Sounds great.
Just to end it here with cheers. Again, thank you so much for joining us here at the Search Bar. You can connect with Brantly and myself on LinkedIn, follow along with our journeys, see where we end up. We'll add the links to connect with us in the episode description. We'll try to get as much of the tips and the software and the websites you mentioned, Brantly. There was a lot. We'll try to put all those into the show notes as well. We hope we filled your glass with digital wisdom, and we'll see you next time at the Search Bar. And if this is your first time listening, make sure you follow us and sign up on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever fine podcasts can be found. Thank you very much, everyone.